Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid-South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the BNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manawa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 10 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. These are tales from my time in IWA Mid-South from 1997 to 2009. I am joined today by the man that held the IWA Mid-South light heavyweight title more times than anyone in company history. Former 12-time champion and former IWA Mid-South tag team champion, Tarek the Great. Tarek, how have you been, man?
Jim, no complaints at all. It's certainly great to see you, man. Thanks for having me on the show. It's awesome to be here, and I'm really looking forward to talking about IWA Mid-South because that was such a big part of my life.
It was definitely a big part of all of our lives here listening to this podcast and the guests I've had on so far. It's been great to be able to go down this trip down memory lane. As I said when I first started this thing, a lot of these stories are, almost 30 years old now. And I was sitting around going, I can't believe that I've been out for, 15, 16 years now and starting to forget everything. And I'm like, I need to start reconnecting with folks and telling these stories because it's going to die with us. There so much of it wasn't videotaped. It wasn't, released. What 50 people in the building some nights if we were lucky. So like a lot of this stuff that happened and was fantastic stuff, but a lot of it is going to get lost to history if we don't talk about it and get the newer generations of fans to know what happened and maybe get them interested to try to go back and watch it. So we're going to have a great time tonight, and it's going to be great to catch up with you because, hell, looking at the results when I went through Cage Match, I don't think I've seen you in like 18 years.
Yeah, at least, man. That's what I'm saying, at least. And, IWA Mid-South really was a magical place for what it was, especially for a young independent wrestler because, my God, man, I mean, the list of talent that came through those doors, like, you can't deny it. Like, it was like every week you would go and you would have no clue who might be in the dressing room. Just you would see people in there it would shock you who the people who came through that dressing room. The list is just so long, and it really was an awesome place and a lot of cool stuff took place there. Punk making his way through Seth Rollins. I mean, you name it, dude. They were AJ Styles. They all came through those doors, man. Vampiro. I mean, there's so many. I can't even think of it, man.
Yeah,
It really was crazy, like the list of talent you would be surrounded with at any given time, man, for a good period.
well, and you brought up Vampiro. I've got him in my list of things to talk about because
Yeah.
you actually wrestled him in Bardstown, Kentucky
Yep.
in August of 1997. And when I went back and looked through Vampiro's like match listings on Cage Match, it was like his sixth appearance in the United States and the first time ever outside of the state of California. And he ends up in Bardstown, fucking Kentucky
Dude, it was so
for IWA Mid
crazy.
South.
So crazy.
How stuff like that happened is just beyond me.
If I'm not mistaken, I could totally be wrong, but I think that may have been the first like actual TV episode that IWA Mid-South did. I could be
It,
wrong, but
I think it was like the first taping, so it
yeah.
might have ended up he did 2 matches. I know he wrestled you and he wrestled Billy Black, another name that's like crazy that just popped up
Wow.
in IWA Mid South. But the same night he wrestled twice, the two of you, and it went out. And so you might have been on that very first TV show, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves as we do this. I start every episode by just doing a going back to when we were kids. How did you become a wrestling fan in the first place?
My dad watched wrestling. I grew up on a Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. It came on every Saturday morning at 11, and I would watch that for an hour. And then at noon on the other channel, Memphis would come on with Lance Russell and, Jerry Lawler and Coco Beware and all those guys. And I would watch that. And my mom wouldn't let me watch the Memphis wrestling. She would make me turn off. She said they were too rough, too bloody, but I would sneak and watch it anyways. And so I grew up on Mid-Atlantic in Memphis, and I would go to the Cincinnati Gardens and see Jim Cornette, Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, Ronnie Garvin, Baby Doll, Magnum TA, Dusty, the golden era, man. That's literally what I grew up on, watching it on my television, then going seeing it in person in the arenas. And I mean, dude, they were running house shows, bro. And this was like Cincinnati Gardens. I mean, it was a big place. And dude, a house show, it would just be packed out, man. Just completely packed out. People going crazy, screaming for blood. Just it was a different time, man. Like it was so different, man. I mean, you have big crowds now and everything, but the emotional connection that used to be there in that time between the wrestlers and the crowds isn't there now.
Oh, I agree 100%. And I grew not quite Mid Atlantic. I had the TBS show on Saturday
I
night.
I grew up on
You
Georgia
know,
as well, of course,
with
605.
Georgia, and then it switched over to the Crockett's who
Yeah,
did Mid Atlantic. And
yeah,
like you said, those
yeah,
crowds were amazing. I
yeah.
mean, go do yourselves a favor if you're listening to this and you haven't watched that kind of stuff. Go back and watch Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express and
There you
watch
go.
20,000 people in the arena just lose their shit over like drop kicks and arm drags and just stuff that the crowds would chant boring at now, but the crowds would eat that up and they would be loud. And you know I would have given anything to have been 10 years older and gotten in and been able to experience just one show.
Yeah,
Just let me
yeah.
be on one show in the mid 80s in the South, whether it be the Mid South Coliseum, whether it be, you know, where somewhere the Omni in Atlanta or, wherever in the Carolinas. Give me
Yeah.
the Sportatorium in Dallas with the Freebirds and the Von Erichs. I mean, when a bad guy would have to fight for his life and hope that he didn't get stabbed
And see
or
that's the thing right there, you got to figure I've experienced the 80s wrestling because I grew up on it and now I've experienced the current product as well. And you can equate it very easily like this. It's like now guys watch a match and they're like, "Holy shit, he kicked out of that. I can't believe it." But back then you watched a match and you're like, "Oh my God, they're going to fucking kill Dusty. He's going to die right now. They're going to kill his ass." Like there's a difference, you know what I mean? Now they get a response from kicking out of a big move. Back then they got a response because you thought they were going to kill Dusty right in front of you.
right,
And that
right,
there's a different in the emotional connection there. You can't have that emotional connection with, kicking out of big moves, doing this and that.
right. Agree 100% with that. And the WWE Vault or WCW Vault, whichever YouTube account to me they're all the same now that they're
Hmm.
all owned by the same conglomeration. But whichever one, they just put out the Saturday night TV show where the Horsemen followed Dusty in the car into the parking lot and tied him
Broke
to the
his
truck
arm.
and broke his arm with the baseball
Yeah, there
bat.
you go. There you
And
go.
that was one of the most impactful TV shows that I watched as a kid.
And the
And
other
I
thing, not to interrupt, but the other thing too, to highlight that is, because back then, like people believed that was real.
call
Like,
calling the
like
police.
Yeah, and you'll never have that in this day and age. Yeah, I
No.
was one of the when I became a pro wrestler, I was like 19 and I was super green, but I got a spot on a radio station local here in Hamilton, Ohio, a big local radio station. And the guy that worked at the radio station promoted a show. His name was Rowdy Ron. And he promoted a show here and drew like 2,000 people. And I somehow ended up on that show. I didn't even belong on it. But we did like a little promo in the radio station, and people called the police. The police showed up because we did a fight inside. And yeah, so yeah, people would call the police, dude, like legit. Like that was, and we'll never go back to that. I don't think we'll ever be able to go back to that, man.
And it's
I,
such a
I
shame.
really don't. Yeah, it is, dude. And I mean, like, the other thing that's missing from, like the current product and everything now to go back to IW Mid-South and the difference between IW Mid-South and the current product is that you don't have any bull pains in this day and age. Like I was scared to death of bull pain. I'll look anybody in the face and say that.
You and
And
me
there
both.
there's a lot of people that were scared to death of bull pain, but anymore there's no bull pains. I mean, even when you got a monster like Obafemi or whatever, he's out there jobbing to Ricky Saints the first 10 minutes of the match. So he's not really a monster.
Well, and I said this on when I went on to Kickboxers podcast. We the same week we did each other's podcasts a couple months ago now, and I said, I would give just about anything money wise to have a time machine and be able to have Orange Cassidy go to 1997 and step into an IWA Mid South ring and put his hands in his pockets and stand in front of Bull Payne for 30 seconds, giving him love taps with his foot, just to watch Bull Payne murder him in the middle of the ring in front of everybody to show how stupid that is. And
Okay, bull,
people give
dude.
me that shit all the time. Oh, you don't understand his gimmick. I understand his gimmick fine. I hate it. Okay, because it makes everybody look like a jackass that they got to stand there and watch him do that shit, and they don't just kill him because
Well, the irony of it, nobody looks like a bigger jackass than himself. That's the pure irony of it. Nobody ends up looking like a bigger jackass than him, but that's what these guys are doing. And funny Bull Payne story, the first time that Frank and I wrestled for IWA Mid-South, um, I was wrestling for OVW at the time. I get a call from Rip Rogers. He was like, "Oh, you guys are going to work for that motherfucker, huh?" And we're like, "What?" And he's like, "You're going to work for Ian, huh?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about." And this was before internet or anything. So he had called me, on the phone. This was like late 90s, whenever it was. He's like, "Yeah," he's like, "Saw the poster over on the telephone pole, man. American Kickboxer versus Tarek the Great or El Perro." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about." And he goes, "Well, you're on the fucking poster." So I talked to Frank. I'm like, "What should we do, dude?" And Frank's like, "I guess show up." So dude, we go and it's a blizzard. That first IWM in South show was a real bad blizzard. And there were like 10 people there, and Luna was there, and Bull was there. And I'd never forget it, dude. We walked in the dressing room and we're sitting there. Me and Frank, and Bull walks in and looks at us. He's like, "You guys need to get the fuck out of here." And we're like, okay. And we start getting our shit. And John's like, "No, no, no, dude, they're working on the show." And Bull looks at John and he goes, "You're fucking kidding me." And John goes, "No, dude, they're on the show tonight." And Bull goes, "This is a fucking joke. Fucking children on the goddamn show. What the fuck? What a joke, man. Fucking God." And just like we had fucking killed pro wrestling right then and there in front of Luna and everybody. And we're like, "Well, we're done. This is going to be the end of this shit." But we went out there and wrestled, and as soon as we came back, Luna came straight up to us and told us what an awesome job we did for like 5 minutes straight. And then Bull apologized to us. He
Wow,
was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I didn't know it was like, sorry, man. You guys were awesome." And Bull was nothing but love and help from that point forward. I love Bull so much.
that is great. That is
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
So
that's a cool story.
I have that first show
Dude,
to
we
talk
we were
about.
so scared, dude. We were so scared, dude. We were like, "Oh my God, he's just gonna eat us alive right now."
Well, and I've told it on the podcast before, but I'll say it again. When I first started and got involved, like it was my friends from college that had become money people and gotten the show to Lexington, where we were going to college at UK, and I was just helping out. So like I'd be security or whatever, and Bull would grab me every show and suplex me on the floor, and I'd have no idea what the fuck I was doing. And I swear to this day, I swear to God, he would get a twinkle in his eye. He would look at me and I would see a twinkle in his eye. And I knew that I was about to get this fucking suplex on the floor. And he would bitch me out every single time. He's like, "You fat motherfucker, why don't you give me an assist, you sandbagging motherfucker?" And he'd chew me out. And I'd almost be in tears. And every time he did it, like 5 shows in a row, it would rip my blue jeans. So like all of my blue jeans would be ripped down, because he'd grab me by the jeans and he'd have to pull so damn hard to get my big fat ass to go that it would tear my jeans every single time. I'd be laying on the ground going, "Why is it so breezy in here all of a sudden?" And I'd look down and like the entire thigh of my jeans split. And
Oh my
it got to
God.
the point where I got tired of buying new jeans. So I would just wear the same ones and I just put baggy shorts on underneath my pants. And he'd be like, "Why don't you fucking buy new clothes, you piece of shit?" And I'd be like, "Because you're just going to rip them." And then finally, like one night, he sat down and he was like, "You will never make it as a wrestler in this business because you suck and you can't even take a suplex." And I'm like, "I have no intentions of being a wrestler. I have zero training." And he'd be like,
You grabbed me, bull.
he was like, "What? All of these guys out here doing the security are training." I'm like, "Not me. I'm just helping my friends out at these shows." And he was like, "Well, motherfucker, why didn't you tell me?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna, you scare the shit out of me. I'm not telling you nothing." And I mean, and it was just, he would get this twinkle in his eye and he
Oh,
would
dude, no, I know
scare
exactly
the
what. Yeah,
shit out of me every single time. And, so I could just see him like, you know, "What are you doing on this show?" And being so worked up. And, he used to have,
he thought you were a young guy, dude. He thought you
yeah,
were a young guy, and you were gonna learn your lesson right then and there. I get it, man, dude. I hurt my ankle real bad on a show one time, right, and couldn't barely walk. And John sent me out there on a run-in for Bull, like everybody was just feeding to Bull, and he was just destroying everyone. I came in. He kicked me in the gut, hooked me for that suplex on the floor. I said, "Bull, my ankle." He threw my arm over. "Bull, my ankle." He grabbed me by the waist. I said, "Bull, it's fucking Tarek, my ankle." And away we went. And I couldn't catch myself with my bottom of my foot like I normally would because of my ankle. So I took the suplex with my legs completely fucking straight out, dude. Just heels right down on the concrete. And if you remember in Charleston, there was that balcony up there.
yes.
Hero and a couple guys were up there. They saw me take that bump. "Oh man, that was a great suplex you took, dude. That was an awesome bump. That was great." I said, "Yeah, I didn't fucking mean to do that. I had no choice."
Well, and that's how I would take every one of those damn suplexes he gave me on the floor. My
Yeah,
heels would hit first on the
yeah,
concrete, and
yeah,
I couldn't, like I would hardly be able to walk
yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah,
And
I mean, normally you would take that on the flat of your feet. That's what would
yeah,
absorb the bump, arch your back a little bit, keep your lower back off the concrete, take it on your shoulders, everything's fine. And I'm not even bitching a bit whatsoever because Bull taught me a whole bunch of what I know. And that's just how it was. Like it wouldn't even just Bull. There were other guys like that too. They would just snatch you, dude, and you got to be ready to go, man. I mean,
right.
if you ain't ready to go, then you ain't ready to be in there with Bull Payne, man.
Nope,
Period.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, but what do you think of the current product, man? Not I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with it, but
I do not watch it. I
not at
do not.
all.
I do not watch it at all. I have not.
Not
I
AEW, not WWE, not nothing.
Nothing. I watched Lucha Underground.
Oh God, yeah, dude, that was awesome.
I watched Lucha Underground and I enjoyed that. I really loved Dario Cueto. I really loved Katrina. I think
Yeah,
at one point on Twitter, I had like tweeted that I would come out of retire like he was. I loved the Mil Muertes versus Phoenix feud,
yes,
and like I think there was he like threw him through like the ceiling of the Dario Cueto's office
yes, yes.
and all this stuff and and then Katrina would give the lick of death and I was like I will come out of retirement tomorrow, fly myself to California, let Mil Muertes throw me off of something to let Katrina give me the lick of death. I was
Yeah.
infatuated with her.
Yeah,
And
I don't know if you can see behind me. I got a couple of Phoenix masks right there.
yes, that was the first time I'd seen Pentagon. That was the first time I'd seen Phoenix.
Yeah, huge. I'm
Um,
a huge Ray Phoenix fan, man. That guy is incredible. But I tell you what, dude, current product, the women in WWE and NXT are just absolutely just killing it, dude. The NXT girls, they're built different, dude. Like they are built different. They can work, dude, and I mean work, work, work. They got a girl named JC Jane. Like, dude, she works so solid, dude. Like she could have absolutely worked in any IWA Mid-South ring back in the day, and the people would have absolutely bought her and loved her. Like they're working on that level, dude. Like it's blowing me away, dude. Like whoever's training those girls, like, is doing a really, 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 really good job, man. Like Stephanie Vacour, she's like one of the best I've ever seen. Soul Ruka is just at like they're killing it so hard, man. So yeah, shout out to all the ladies there, dude. They're amazing, man. Like I almost look forward to watching their matches more than I do the men. And it's crazy because I don't watch because, they're hot chicks, I'm watching because their work is just off the freaking charts, man. They just brought this girl in from Evolve named Kendall something. And just my God, dude, she works like a man. Like she gets it. Like these girls are killing it, man. So if you get a minute, take a minute and watch it, Jim. You'll be surprised, dude. I promise.
Manawa tells me that all the time too, and it's wrestling left such a bad taste in my mouth when I
I
left
get, yeah,
kind of thing that I wasn't watching it.
yeah,
I'll watch when the Vault releases like an Omni show or the stuff I grew up on. I'll go back and watch that. Um, but I tried to give AEW a chance when it started. Um, and my WWE hate was I always hated WWE. I couldn't stand Vince McMahon. I hated what he did, killed the territories, made it more about, entertainment and the fireworks and
yeah,
whatever instead of the in-ring product. And
yeah,
I was never a fan. So I didn't really ever watch their stuff. And then when it was the only game in town, I just completely fell out. So like I said, I gave Lucha Underground a chance. I really liked Lucha Underground. So then, a lot of those guys then were in the early stages of AEW, and I tried to give that a shot. And I went to a couple of shows when they came to Chicago. Hung out with BJ Whitmer after one of the shows when he was working there as like an agent
yeah,
backstage or whatever.
yeah.
And, I sort of enjoyed it, but then it was like just all of a sudden everybody they brought in were like people I just couldn't. They just bored me to death watching them, and it got to the point where I was fast forwarding the shows more than I was sitting there watching, and it's like I'm not gonna spend 40 minutes fast forwarding through crap to get to the 5 minutes I want to watch. I'm just not gonna do that anymore.
Yeah, I get it. I
So
get
I
it.
stopped watching them, and you know I think the last WWE thing I watched was the like pipe bomb era of CM Punk. Uh, I watched a little bit
All
back then,
right. Yeah.
And that's been the last I've watched of their stuff, and
Right on. Cool.
just it was Manawa was like shocked when I actually like went and enjoyed the GCW show when they put Mitch and Roland in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Um,
that was cool, dude.
I actually went and had a great time, and then I was like, oh well, maybe there's still a little bit of that love for it somewhere in me, and it's led to this, but it still hasn't gotten me to be able to watch the current stuff. It's just too different than what I grew up on and what I went through. These I don't think a lot of these guys would like have they wouldn't have lasted 3 weeks in IWA. Not that that's
Probably not a
anything to
probably
brag about.
probably not a night. Honestly, I've
Yeah.
seen guys leave in a night. I remember guys would leave the same night. Yeah. What IWA Mid-South questions you got?
All right, so we're going to start where you were on the very first IWA Mid South show. You had mentioned it. It was the snowstorm, the blizzard, where Southern Indiana is not equipped to handle that kind of stuff. You might have been okay if it was in Chicago or Detroit or areas that actually experience snow. But in Southern Indiana, they shut down everything. So we would just cancel shows when it would snow like that, back when after I had gotten involved, but he actually ran this first show. And you mentioned you were El Perro, and I never got to see El Perro. That predated my time in IWA Mid South. But what was it? You gave a little bit of a background on it with Bull Payne not being very impressed and Rip Rogers not being very happy that you were there. But any other memories that you have of being in that very first match on that's a bit of history. You and Kickboxer could say you're the very first IWA Mid South match that ever happened.
Yeah, when I started training and like the second place I went to train is when I met Frank. And immediately the guy who was training us said, "You two are married," talking about me and Frank. So he had enough sense to put us together, and we had the bright idea of studying lucha libre and learning that style because we were so small. And we figured if we put on the costumes and, kind of hid the fact that we were smaller because it was a big man's game back then, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
For sure. So, we thought we would hide it and, make us, but we figured we might be able to get away with it if we learn lucha libre. So, a lot of people say that we were one of the very first ones to bring lucha libre to the United States, like on the independent circuit, being two American guys to do that style or whatever. Take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I remember we was like, Frank and I'm like, what do we do? Rip Rogers said we're booked. Frank's like, I guess we go. So, we go through the snowstorm and it was complete hell. And we get there and we're like, hey, Ian, we're El Perro and Kickboxer. He's like, oh, cool. You guys fucking showed up. It was like, yeah. He was like, I figured if I put you on the flyer, you'd show up. That's
So,
how it
so
happened.
you guys weren't even, he just put you on the flyer,
Yes.
and
Literally looked at through the snowstorm, 10 people there, Luna, Bull, everybody looks at me and says, yeah, I figured if I put you guys on the flyer, you'd show up. That's how it happened, bro.
and
As crazy of a story that is, that's how it happened. If Rip Rogers wouldn't have called us, we wouldn't have known. So in a weird, crazy sort of way, Rip Rogers got us booked that night on
that's
IWA Mid-South.
and not only did he get you
He's gonna
booked,
be so pissed if he hears this story, dude.
not only did he get you booked, he got you booked in a title match because that very first match was for the IWA Mid South Light Heavyweight title. You know, very first show, and
Yeah,
you guys are already fighting for the title. And
yeah.
uh, was there actually a belt? Because I had to
No,
look
no,
on.
there wasn't a belt for the longest time. For the longest time, there wasn't a belt, and then Frank had one made that we used to carry around. And it would be the light heavyweight belt no matter which promotion we were in.
Okay.
Like if we were champion of that promotion, that belt came out with it. We just took it everywhere. And then eventually Punk had a belt from Milwaukee, I think, that he used to let me carry out as the light heavyweight championship. So
Okay.
there for a while, he would let me use that belt and I would carry it out and show it off like it was the IWA Mid-South light heavyweight title.
Nice. So, you're on that very first show, January 6th, 1996.
God,
Think it was called Winter Wars. And then the next show that Ian runs is April Blood Showers, 1996, and you guys are on that one. So he took like 3 months to recover from the snowstorm disaster. Tries again with April Blood Showers. You and Kickboxer are again on the show. You're still doing El Perro at that point. Um, and then the next time that he runs is October of 96 with the start of something big where he got the Kmart building and started running weekly. And 3 weeks into that run, it's already to mask versus mask, you versus Kickboxer, both mask versus mask, and you drop the El Perro gimmick. So Nick Manawa and Brent Blades both wanted me to ask you, like, one, kind of incredible that, of course you guys were wrestling, as you said, you were married to each other, so you were wrestling each other all over the country. But this was like the infancy of the internet. So these fans in Louisville, Kentucky, do not know that you guys are wrestling in Detroit, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, all over the place, wrestling each other. So this is like, as far as they're concerned, this is like the fifth time you guys have wrestled, and it's already to mask versus mask. Uh, I don't think that could have been your guys' idea. Um, did Ian even tell you, or did he just announce it when you got to the building? Um, because it did.
Ian Ian told me he wanted me to take the mask off because he thought I could be a much better character with the mask off. And it would give more attention to Frank with him wearing his mask. Um, and he originally suggested that I use my real name and the Czechoslovakian background and be like some kind of like militant type, like Tarek, like, a military guy or something. But that never transpired. I just became Tarek the Great from Czechoslovan, Czechoslovakia, which my true last name really is Czechoslovakian. And then it just turned in from there. And that was literally like the whole development of Tarek the Great. But then when I did Tarek the Great in Heartland Wrestling for Les Thatcher, we tried the heel thing, but it didn't work, and they turned me baby, which happened in IWA Mid-South too. But I was literally working like heel Tarek the Great in IWA Mid-South and baby Tarek the Great in Heartland Wrestling. So I was blessed to be able to be forced to learn heel and baby at I could work either one like at the drop of a hat. So that was a blessing too. So
And
yeah, that was John's idea. So, I am
okay,
thankful for that, man. That's how Tarek the Great happened.
okay, but you didn't adopt the Tarek the Great everywhere that you were working, because I still saw El Perro was still what you were using in like Michigan and a couple of shows in Pennsylvania for even like a year or two after you had switched to Tarek the Great in IWA Mid South.
Yep, and that
Um,
was
was
literally
that
the
was
that
that like
was
those promoters decided to keep you as El Perro, or you wanted to like keep that gimmick alive? What was
that
that?
was that was literally still us getting bookings around the country from word of mouth because of the attraction appeal of our match. because no one else was doing the lucha libre
Right.
style and stuff. We got the masks on. We're kind of like the midgets, the small people that wrestle, or the girls that wrestled back in the day. Like back in the 70s or the 80s, the women wrestling was an attraction
Right.
because there weren't so we were an attraction. We were like the circus sideshow. So we were still getting booked with that, making money, getting paid, and doing TVs and stuff. So that's why we kept El Perro and American Kickboxer going, because Perro and Kickboxer had feuded in all these different states with all these different promotions, and our feud got over so good we just kept it going. We kept everything fresh, you know what I mean? Um, dude, to be honest with you, Kickboxer only pinned me like a certain number of times. Like it wasn't very much, but it was the story. That's the story that we had. He was always that close to beating me. But by always being that close to beating me, everybody would come back next week to
Right.
see him kick my fucking ass. That's called storytelling. That's called making money. That's called.
Well, I mean, he wasn't Kickboxer the Great. You know, it was right there in the name that you were better than he was. So,
Yeah, but you know what I mean? People don't storytell like
right.
that
Oh,
anymore. Like I've watched some of these TV shows, and they'll come out with this big angle and something will happen, and then 2 weeks later they're having the blow off match on the pay-per-view, and it's like, wait a minute, that was quick.
right.
Like
And then they
good
got to,
God.
and then whoever did the job has to get the win back the next night on TV,
There you go.
and
Yeah, yeah.
it's all 50-50 booking.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say this, I never was a big John Cena fan, growing up, watching him, anything like that. But I will say the match that he had with Gunther, his very last match the other night on Saturday night's main event, it was professional wrestling. And one of the announcers, I can't remember who it was, he said, "This was the night that professional wrestling defeated sports entertainment." And dude, it
That's
sent chills through my spine, man, because they really told a story with the sleeper hold, man. And it was magic. Like that, I actually lost myself in it, and was able to play make believe there for a little while at the end. And like I said, I'm not really a John Cena fan, so to be that invested in it, it was really cool, dude. It was
that's a cool
really
line.
cool.
That's a cool line.
Yeah, it was intense, dude. That'll stick with me forever, dude. It was like, man, he really cemented it there, dude. It was really cool.
And I did pop when I saw that somebody put like Jesse Ventura comment on my timeline where he was like, "Oh, so John Cena's former 17-time champion. Well, that means he lost it 17 times, and who wants to brag
Yes.
about that?"
Yeah, there
And
you
I'm
go.
like,
Yeah.
I growing up on Jesse Ventura is, I mean, that just melts me you know to hear that. I could still I could still like picture him with I do that to my own grandmother to go him,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and if you
And
ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And I mean, he would just have all kinds of classic ones. And
it was so funny too, because like they're like, "Oh, we're bringing Jesse back. He's coming back. Everybody's like, "Oh shit, here comes Jesse." And then I watched the show and I'm like, "Wait a minute, where was Jesse?" And they're like, "Oh, he was on the pre-show." I was like, they didn't even let him anywhere near the main show, dude. They
uh,
advertised him. That's some funny shit, dude. But
uh,
yeah, what else you want to talk about, man? You want to talk about Ian and the tag belts?
we're almost to that point here. First, I got we've talked about you're married to Kickboxer and doing the feud with Kickboxer, but then IWA, you do this is the last match between Tarek and Kickboxer for 60 days. And then
Mm,
you immediately are in a tournament to crown the first ever IWA Mid South Heavyweight Champion. And then you team with Bull Payne and you get to the finals of the tag title tournament for
Jesus.
the first tag title. Did that create any jealousy with the other light heavyweight guys? Because like you had talked about earlier, this was a big man sport back then. And, you guys were the special attraction with like the little people matches and the women's matches, as you said, because you were the small guys. And now all of a sudden you're, making it into the heavyweight title tournament and the tag title tournament and wrestling with, Bull and Corporal and Ian and all these other guys. Was there jealousy with the guys that were still in that light heavyweight division and not able to break out of that?
I I don't know that they weren't ecstatic that I got picked to go out there and do that and not them.
Okay.
Because I really feel like Ian did that shit to make a man out of me real quick. I feel like he did a whole lot of shit in that promotion to make a man out of me real quick. And IWA Mid-South did. Like it was life-changing for me. Like, no bullshit, no tall stories. Like it was fight to survive in there a lot. Like it really was. And in there were Corp and Bull and dude, Bull, no mercy, dude, no mercy, dude. You either make it with Bull or you don't. And, I don't know anything about jealousy, anything like that. I mean, for the most part, everybody always treated me cool and was cool to me. There was some bullshit incidents, just like there is, in any federation, bullshit, indie bullshit. It's going to happen, but, for the most part, everybody was cool. And just, yeah, I forgot about being in that tag team tournament and that tournament. That shit was crazy. And yeah, dude, it was just fight to survive a lot back then, man. God bless, dude. I mean, I remember Ian going in the middle of people's matches, dude, and like stopping their matches and shit, and like, intervening. Like, nah, dude, if you're gonna wrestle, you're gonna wrestle, and you're gonna do it like this, and it
Yeah, I
was
mean that's like, that's what happened with Roland Hard. He was what, Tornado Taz or
yep,
Trustworthy Taz,
yep,
and he's out there and wrestling in the Kmart building and you know not giving stiff chair shots, taking
yep.
it a little too light on it, and all of a
That
sudden
is who it
the
was. You're
the
right. You're right.
empty the dressing room on him and beat the
Oh
shit out of
yeah.
him, and
Dude,
and then
I
he
forgot that
comes back as
happened.
Rolling Hard,
I
and
forgot that happened, Jim. Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing. Dude, there's so much I bet I forgot, man. I bet you, dude.
Well, I know there's a ton that I've
Wow,
forgotten.
yeah.
Um, and we
Yeah,
discussed
dude.
this before I hit record. We discussed this a little bit, but I just wanted to get your take on it, um, on the actual podcast. I know I got frustrated because you and Kickboxer, that was the match that drew me and my buddies to keep coming back on a weekly basis when we first started coming to the Kmart building. And we loved, every match was different. Every match, you guys broke out something new that we hadn't ever seen before. And 95% of the crowd was eating it up and loving it. But then you had that small percentage of the crowd that would, just wanted to see somebody get hit with a chair and bleed. That's all they were there for. And they would like scream shit and drown everybody else out. And it would just aggravate the piss out of me. What did you guys even notice that when you're in the ring? Are you so locked in, focused on the match that you don't even really hear it, or did that eat at you as much as it was eating at me as a fan, that some of the crowd was acting that way?
Um, I was always aware of it 110%. Frank was always aware of it 110%. We reacted differently. Um, I knew not to get mad about it. I knew not to let it piss me off because I knew if I let it piss me off, you're letting the fans dictate your match and you're letting your fans dictate your mood, everything. And Frank, when we started out, we used to get a lot of heat because of our size. And somebody would say something to strike Frank's nerve, and he would like be into it with some guy in the second row. And it was like, dude, we can't do that. We can't do that. And eventually Frank got, to where he understood the principle of it and everything. And then the point to where, we want blood and all this shit and everything. At the same time, we were wrestling in IWA Mid-South, ECW was huge. And we were watching that show. And Mick Foley was out there wrestling in a match, and people started chanting, "We want blood, we want blood, we want blood." Can't remember who he was wrestling. He took him down in a headlock, and he sat there, and he sat there, and he sat there, and he sat there. "We want blood, fuck you, fuck you." And he sat there. "Fuck you, we want blood, fuck you." He sat there, he sat there, he sat there. Finally, they quieted down, and Mick stood up. From that point forward, the very first second someone said, "We want blood," didn't matter who it was, me or Frank would be the first ones to grab the headlock on the other and take them over.
Nice.
That's exactly how that worked. Soon as we heard it, we were fighting each other to get the headlock on and take each other down so we could just sit there. And
That's
I
fantastic.
remember I would look out and just be like, "We can sit here all fucking day." I would tell the crowd, "We can sit here all fucking day long." Because I didn't care. And eventually they would stop and we would get up and we would do our spots and they would pop and everything would be fine. But yeah, the boring, boring pussy, all that shit, man. Like, it was just, art imitating life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly the right way to handle it too.
Yeah, but if you're in the ring, you're in control. The
Right,
crowd's not in control. You paid to come see us. We didn't pay to come see you.
right.
You don't dictate the show here.
Okay. And you had brought it up earlier, and I know Nick Manawa wanted me to ask you about this. So, you know, OVW, IWA did not get along back then, and you know, both both companies um, would tell the wrestlers, you can't go work for them. And Nick Manawa said that he remember watching, and there was a masked guy on OVW, and he's like, "That I think that's Tarek." And then you did a move, and he was like, "It was Tarek." And so he wanted me to ask you about you're Tarek the Great on IWA Mid South, and you're one of our main guys. I think at this point you're like hanging out, and I don't know if you an official member of the Bad Motherfuckers, or were you just like
Dude, I was
uh,
absolutely an official member there for a
yeah,
little while, dude. Yeah,
yeah.
and I
So
don't,
you're with Bull, you're teaming with Bull,
and Todd.
and Todd,
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, it was.
and then and
Woo!
then and then you're under a mask working OVW. What were you using the El Perro name? What name were
No,
you
not at all,
using?
not at all.
What name were you using in OVW at that point under the hood?
So Ian didn't really want me working there, but I bitched and told him I wanted to do it anyways, and I ended up doing it. And then Rip did wanted me on his TV, but didn't want me on his TV because I was on IWA Mid South. So you want to talk about dressing room jealousy? That's when it happened, dude. Because a
Okay.
lot of the OVW guys were dying to work in IWA Mid South. They wanted to work in IWA Mid South bad, some of the guys, and
Uh-huh.
which they did eventually. But yeah, man. And I put this mask on that Frank had and dressed myself up, and I called myself Mothra from Monster Island.
did
Yeah,
you
and
have two Japanese twins come out with you?
no, 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 dude, it was
Oh,
way low budget than that. But I
okay.
was doing their TV, right?
Uh-huh.
No bullshit, dude. No bullshit. The first match I'm out there wrestling. Let's go, Tarek. Let's go. Let's go, Tarek. And I'm heel.
Oh God.
So to make a long story short, Danny Davis got really super pissed because they kept chanting my name and cheering for me. And he was like, "God damn it." He was like, "I want to fucking fire you, but you're over." He was like, but they ain't supposed to know you're over because they don't know who the fuck you are. And he's like, "Well, I guess it's Tarek the fucking Great then." So I ended up finally got to be Tarek the Great on OVW and work with Chad Collier and a bunch of all the great guys down there, Flash Flanagan, Nick Dinsmore, Rob Conway. It was completely awesome, and to be under the learning tree of Rip Rogers, and learning all the shit I was learning in IW Mid-South just from walking. Dude, if you walked through the door at IW Mid-South and left without learning anything, you were never going to learn anything in your entire damn life.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's one thing, dude. Like I am so blessed. Like that's one thing that's a big takeaway from IWA Mid-South. Like if you were a young wrestler coming up there with all the names that came through there, all the people that came through there that just unbelievable, dude. Just unbelievable, invaluable.
Yeah, yeah, the amount of guys that came through and the amount of experience that they had. I mean, you could, it was, you would almost have the entire USWA locker room in the IWA Mid South locker room, because we were running on the same nights. Those guys, they would go and open on the US, at the Gardens, and then they'd come over and wrestle, or vice versa. They'd open at the Kmart building and then go main event at the Gardens later that night. And there was just so much talent around there that you
Dude, I,
couldn't.
I learned so much from Tommy Rich. I learned so much from Tracy Smothers, from Bull Payne. I learned from working with guys like Punk, and Nate Webb and Chris Hero, and even the guys that weren't big names at that time. Like I learned so much from working with them because they were the new breed coming up, and the new Hungry Lions. At one time me and Frank were the Hungry Lions, and then it became,
Yep.
Hero and Punk were the Hungry Lions, and we got to work with those guys, and just, they were changing the game and changing the business. You know what I mean? And we learned and adapted to that style, and just so much, dude. It was incredible, man. It really, really was. And yeah, the bad motherfuckers, dude. That shit was crazy, dude. We had a cage match against Sabu and Corporal and somebody else. And I'll never forget it, man. Like, we were working in this cage match, and Sabu kept climbing up the top of the cage, and I would climb to the top of the cage and punch him and knock him back down to the floor. Did that 4 or 5 times, and then we get in there, we're fighting and everything. And then I remember I took a chair shot or something like that. I can't remember what it was. And Bull came over. I was on face down on the mat. He rolled me over, looked at me, said, "God damn, you're in a bad way, brother. You need to get out of here." And that was one of the worst gashes I ever suffered in my life. And it was completely on the front
Mm.
of my head, on the front of my head. It was really bad. Like you could see my skull and stuff. And a real bad blood loss, like real quick. And there was some dude that worked in the back. I can't even remember who he was, but we called him the doctor. I think maybe he had seen a couple episodes of MASH.
Um,
He had
I
brown
think,
hair.
yeah, I think that was Mitch Page's uncle.
That dude was freaking awesome, okay? And if you're out there, bro, thanks. I appreciate you, man, because he patched me up more than once. Um, that night, he patched me up with super glue and masking tape. Like, dude,
Yeah.
masking tape, right? Right? And I'm like, who would do that with dude, I am telling you that masking tape worked like surgical tape. It was
Wow.
unbelievable, dude. I couldn't believe the adhesion it had.
Nice.
But yeah, dude, like that was the other thing too, man. We get busted open and shit, man. Like I got a really like I don't know if you can see it, but
Yeah.
I got a really bad one there, man. From a chair shot. I was in a match with oh God, what was his name? Danny, little shorter lightweight guy from Chicago.
Danny Daniels.
Danny Daniels, yeah. I ended up getting it wasn't his fault at all whatsoever. Uh, no problems whatsoever working with Danny Daniels ever. But I took a chair clip in there and split my head open real bad, and he took care of me again and super glued my head shut that time, dude. And those are some crazy stories too, just the battle stories from IWA Mid-South, the shit I've seen, dude. Like I watched get Bull Payne get stitched up with no anesthesia, dude. You know,
Yeah,
he was wrestling
that was
in his
bad.
match with
Yeah,
Rocco Rock. Yeah,
yeah,
and that was just, just God, dude. Like, some of the stories you can tell of the shit we've seen, man, it freaks people out, man. They're just like, wow. And we've seen some shit, dude. And,
we have.
talking about that first taping again, and going back to the way things were in IWA Mid-South, that first TV taping is when Ian wrestled Cash Flow before Cash Flow was Cash Flow.
Yeah,
And did you do the ring announcing on that show?
it was either me or Rico. I
I
don't think it
thought,
was. Well, no, it wasn't me. I hadn't
okay,
because
okay,
that was the 3 months before I started getting involved.
okay.
So we were
Dude,
front row.
I remember Ian out of nowhere putting Mike Cashflow on the TV taping out of nowhere. Um, Mike was in his street clothes. John looks over. John was supposed to wrestle somebody. Something happened. He looks over at Mike and he goes, "You ready?" Mike goes, "Well, yeah." He goes, "All right, you're wrestling me tonight on television." And dude, if I can remember right, I don't even think Mike had gear. I think he just took his shirt off. And I remember he got in the
Yeah.
ring and ladies and gentlemen from so and so, Ian Rotten. And Rico literally goes, and his opponent, Mike. And dude, the beating that Ian put on Mike that night was
Yeah.
just like, you could watch a IWA Mid-South show for an hour, hour and a half straight. But when Ian came out and started working, it completely changed the whole dichotomy and the energy of the show. Like, that's one thing I will say about him, dude. His work, you fucking believed it. Like when he was out there, nobody was saying, "Oh, he's not really hitting him." No, dude. Like, it changed everything. And he put an ungodly beating on Mike that night. And they got back to the dressing room. He said, "You all right, Mike?" Mike said, "Yeah, I'm good to go, man. I'm no problems at all." And, shit was different back then. Like you said, a lot of these new
Yeah.
guys, man, like they would not be able to, they wouldn't be able to do that, man. Like Ian didn't call anything with him. Hey, you're going out there tonight. You ready? Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, let's go.
Right.
And Mike learned a shit ton from that match. I guarantee he learned a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
He learned not how to get his ass whipped like that anymore. I
And
learned how to
that
not,
is an
yeah,
important thing to learn.
yeah, I learned a lot of that in IWA Mid-South, dude. I
Yeah.
took a lot of good ass kickings down there, man. It taught me some shit.
Now, since we got back to the TV taping, do you have any idea how he got Vampiro for that show?
I have absolutely no clue, Jim, whatsoever at all, period. I know he was high on me in Kickboxer and he was high on me and he was like, "Hey man, you want to work with Vampiro?" And I'm like, "Really?" And yeah, dude, I ended up becoming somewhat of friends with Ian after that. Ian as far as Vampiro. Um and through the Clowns. Did a couple tours and did a few shows that Vampiro was on and everything. And he remembered me from our match in IWA Mid-South. So I actually got to spend some time with Vampiro and work with him a little bit. And,
Okay,
cool
well,
dude, man.
I'm going to make an executive decision, and I'm going to need you to back me up on this since you were involved in the match.
If I can remember.
Okay, here is the official story that we're going to go with. Ian just put Vampiro on the flyer, and Rip Rogers called up Vampiro and said, "What the fuck you doing working for that son of a bitch?" And Vampiro's like, "Oh, well, I guess I gotta fucking go. I'm on the flyer." And we're gonna go with that as being the story as to how he
Okay.
pulled that off.
All right. Sounds good. I'll buy it.
All right. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is not IWA related, but it had to have been cool, and I want to hear some stories from it. Um, in 2000, January of 2000, you get to take a 2 week tour of FMW. How did you get that? And do you have any good stories from that trip?
If I'm not mistaken, I went the first time I went was 99, I think.
Okay.
I think I went in 99, 2000, and then 2001.
I know I saw 2000 and 2001. There could have been 99 in there as well.
Yeah, I did 3 tours. Well, I'll throw an IWA Mid-South story in there, okay?
Okay.
So I tell Ian, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going to FMW, and he's like, oh my God, that's so fucking great, dude, that's awesome, God, and he was 100% supportive, like that's so fucking cool, dude, great, great, great. And I'll never forget, dude, like I wrestled for IWA Mid South the night before I got on the plane to fly to Japan. And I remember I told him, I kind of want to take it easy tonight, I don't want to risk it before I go, I want to make sure everything's cool. All right, man, cool, no problem, dude. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dude, I end up in a 2 out of 3 falls count anywhere match against Too Tough Tony. And the finish of the match took place outside in the parking lot. 2 tables stacked on top of each other. Tony did his spin plancha off the
Yeah,
top of a bulldozer and put me through 2 tables. It's like,
I
okay, cool.
remember
Thanks for letting me take it easy and appreciate you, bro.
that.
So
Well,
thanks, dude. Pepperidge Farm remembers. But I flew to Japan by myself. Um, Never having really flown before. Only really time I flew before was once for a booking that Bull Payne got us in Mississippi. So, on a plane 15 hours by yourself to a country that you can't speak the language you know nothing about by yourself is crazy within itself. That's a trip. And then I get to the airport, and then one of my heroes, Ricky Fuji, is there holding the sign with my name on it to pick me up from the airport. I'm like, yeah, this ain't real. I'm dreaming or some shit.
Wow.
But yeah, ended up going back to the hotel and everything, yada yada. Went to the dojo to train. That was a complete and total experience, because it was a full-on shoot work type dojo workout. And to shed a little light on it, it ended up with me basically kicking Hito as hard as I possibly could with Kyoto Fuyuki in my face screaming at me, harder, harder. And Fuyuki, and with every scream, I'm afraid Fuyuki's just gonna drill me or something, dude, because like I'm terrified of Kyoto Fuyuki. And he's right in my face screaming at me. So I'm kicking the dog shit out of Hito, like with everything I had, throwing my hips into it, throwing, kickboxer worked with me before I went over there to work finessing my kicks and my strikes. So I'm throwing my hips, turning my hips into everything, everything. And Fyodo's screaming at me, and I'm just like, Hito's gonna fucking kill me, dude. And finally, they just look at me and they go, okay. And I'm just like, God damn. So, that was a trip within itself because Phyllis Lee was the one, God bless her, that got me booked. And here you go. I actually got my I'm sorry, I actually got my FMW booking at an IWA Mid-South show. That's how it transpired. That's how it happened.
Okay.
On YouTube, there's a 6-man tag team match. It's me, I think Suicide Kid, and I'm sorry, who else was it? Colt Cabana, maybe? Or no, we were against Punk, Cabana, and why can I not remember? There's a 6-man tag team on YouTube.
Now
Uh,
I think it's because you did you were feuding against my superheroes, and it was like Chris Hero and Punk, and then it might have been BJ,
yep,
maybe.
there you go. I think so. Yes, against me, Suicide Kid, and was it Isaiah? I can't remember, dude. It's on
Yeah,
YouTube though.
I can't remember
It's
who.
got a decent amount of views. But anyway, I had
It might have been Colt Suicide and you.
Colt. Yeah, it was. And that match right there, Phyllis Lee was in the crowd at IW Mid South, and Abdullah was in the crowd at IW Mid South. And I impressed Phyllis Lee with the kicks I was throwing, and she thought it'd be a good idea for me to go to FMW and do the shoot boxing gimmick. Um, and I told her, I said, I'm not really trained in that. And she was like, but I've seen you. You can defend yourself. You'll be fine. And I worked with kickboxer a lot before my Japan trip, so I didn't die. Um, And she ended up getting me booked in FMW after that night. And then she told Abdullah to get me booked in Puerto Rico. And Abdullah was like, just give me a picture, brother. Just give me a picture. That's all I need, a picture. But I never ended up sending the picture to Abdullah because I wasn't sure about Puerto Rico.
Mm.
I didn't want to go down there and get cut up and shit. Um, so yeah, FMW was amazing. My first show was Cork and Hall on pay-per-view. So I couldn't have asked for more. One of my dreams was to work in Japan. I never wanted to work in WWE. That was never a goal of mine. I was realistic. I knew I wasn't big enough to go there.
Right.
And even though like I've had trainers with very good connections in WWE that was like, hey, if you put a little weight on,
Uh-huh.
I can have you a contract here real soon. But I was like, nah, I'm doing lucha, I'm making money. I'm good, man. I just want to go to Japan. So that was actually my goal, and I got to do it and live my dream. And yeah, it actually happened from an IWA Mid-South show, and I worked Cork and Hall, my first show on pay-per-view, and got legitimately knocked unconscious 7 seconds into the fight. So I will say that they took very, 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 very good care of me financially. Um, and to go over there and be on pay-per-view in your first fight, and you got to go 2 rounds, and 7 seconds into the fight, then the only thing you remember is 7, 8, 9. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get up when I woke up after being unconscious.
Wow.
Yeah, the bell rang and Hito came in with fist and feet, backed me into the corner, and caught me with a kick right to the
Mm.
jaw. And I wanted to impress, so I didn't block it. Next thing I knew
Oof.
was 6, 7, 8. And I got up, ended up knocking him down twice, and then he knocked me unconscious going into the second round. And that
Wow.
was the end. Yeah. And then it ended up Hito in IWA Mid-South. What are the chances, right? Talking, dude, I'm telling you, it was
Small
everybody,
world,
every,
you know.
yeah, dude, I haven't seen you since Japan. How you been, Hito? It was
Nice.
crazy, man. It was wild. And then the second time I went over, I fought Hito again. And I got to do some really cool stuff with Willie Williams. Willie Williams was a martial arts master. Um, you can look him up, dude. Just his reputation's a mile long. His accolades are a mile long. He's a complete legend. And I got to train with him, and I learned a lot with him. He accompanied me to the ring on pay-per-view. Like it was such an honor, like just beyond my wildest dreams. What a complete honor. Um, and then the third time I went, I worked the Super Show at Kawasaki Stadium, dude.
And I think I was looking at that 2001 tour. You like won almost every one of your matches. I think
Yeah,
you lost the last one that you had.
yeah, yep.
But
And that was just completely amazing. I got to work with Ricky Fuji. I got to work with all my heroes on that tour. Hayabusa was there. It was completely amazing to spend time with those guys and be there and then, cap it off at the annual legendary Super Show. I'm sitting there talking to great Sasuke and, Hayabusa and, just all these guys. And Genosuke. And it was amazing and just completely surreal to walk out in front of 14,000 people, and you're on pay-per-view in several Asian countries. And, that was my WrestleMania moment right there, man, for sure.
and it sounds like it should have been. Is that the largest crowd that you've been in front of? Then is 14,000.
By way far, far and beyond and above. Yeah, for sure. 100%. Um, the only other time I would have worked in front of like a bigger crowd like that would have been like the original ECW. I got to do a couple shows there because of Balls Mahoney.
Okay.
Uh, I toured Japan with Balls. We actually became friends in a Smoky Mountain when he was Boo Bradley. And then we stayed friends through there. And then I ended up doing FMW with Balls. And then he got me a shot at the original ECW. And I was making shows for them. So I did a couple of their shows. Those are really good crowds too.
Okay. and I saw his family's in a bad way, and they've got a GoFundMe going.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And
And I shared the link
that
and
was a sad story to
yeah,
read.
made a donation there. Yeah, man. Very, very. But, thank God to Chris Jericho. I think everything worked out for him. And,
Okay, so they were
hopefully,
able to
yeah.
get saved. That's
To
good.
my knowledge, I mean, I haven't followed up on it, but I know Chris Jericho shared it and a lot of people were, and he donated. So,
Okay.
hopefully they'll get the help that they need, man. Because one thing I know, Balls loved his wife and children, man. He loved his girl. He loved his children, man, for sure.
Um, didn't want to bring it down like that, but I figure, if they still
Oh
needed
no, it
some
brings
help,
back great,
maybe
great.
somebody that listens to the podcast can help out and make a small donation too. Is every little bit helps when you're fighting to not get evicted from your house or trying to find a
Yeah,
better place to go live.
yeah,
Um,
for sure. What
but
else you got, Jim?
well, I got you come back from that last the 2001 FMW tour. You come back and you win the light heavyweight title from CM Punk in July of 2001. Um, and I know you had mentioned before we started recording that you really liked your series of matches with Punk. You end up you lose the title to, like, I think you did a flipped it back and forth with Mark Wolf, and then you ended up losing it to CM Punk back. Um, do you have anything you wanted to talk about with the series of matches you had with Punk at
Yeah,
that
man.
stage?
I got really, really lucky getting put with Punk, and I got to work with him on a regular basis there for a while, and we really gelled really good together and had great matches. And it's always very unique to me because, like, a lot of people have opinions about Punk and this and that, and he always treated me with like the utmost respect. I mean, high level, just like top shelf respect, man. Like I really, really got along with him really well. And we worked very, very stiff. We worked very snug and we really went at it super hard. And it was just that was a highlight of my time in IWA Mid-South for sure. I really, really enjoyed working with him. We got along great. And that was definitely a highlight. I'm blessed to have worked the program with him that I did, man, because you can watch that strong style match that we had, man. It was very short, but very snug, and it told a very strong story. The story there was to put Punk over like $1 million, and I'm pretty sure I did that. I told
Absolutely.
him, I told him, I said, when you hit that shining wizard, I said, give me everything you got, dude. I said, don't worry about hurting me. I will protect myself. Yeah, I really enjoyed working with him, man. It was a good time. I liked working snug, and he worked just as snug, if not snugger than anybody I ever worked with. It was great.
Well, in the the you talked about how you and Kickboxer used to be the young lions in IWA Mid South, and then it was Punk and it was Hero, and it's good that it sucked for you two that you missed the Smart Mark era,
Yeah.
and so a lot of your
Yep.
stuff is
Yep.
not caught on videotape where
Yep.
it got out there like the Punk Hero stuff did. So you guys missed out on that rub and that bump that you could have gotten from it. But the
Yep.
fact that that you had no problem, passing that baton on to those guys, because you also made it to the finals of a heavyweight title tournament right around the time that you were doing the series with Punk. October of 2001, you make it to the finals of the heavyweight title tournament where you lost to Chris Hero. And you came that close to being the heavyweight champion and been one of the few that pull off being a heavyweight champ and a light heavyweight champ. It would have been quite the feather in your cap to be able to do that. Um, the last series of matches I want to talk to you about that were your famous matches from IWA Mid South around this time. I don't know if you had ever heard the term. I told you before we started recording about Manawa and Bentley having done a podcast that I listened to a month or so ago that was a Ask Me Anything style, and they brought up your series of matches with Ian in like 2002, 2003, and then the 10th anniversary show in 2006. That some fans, not everybody, but some fans affectionately referred to them as meth lab battle arts style matches. Um, and they talked about how much Ian hated that term for those matches. But there was there was at least three matches that you had with Ian in this time frame. You had wrestled him a couple of times before in the earlier days of IWA Mid South. But what do you remember after the FMW style had taken root into what you were doing in the ring and coming and having those style of matches with Ian in 2002, 2003, 2006? Do you have any memories of those?
Absolutely, man. Those matches were very, very crucial to me because I really like upped my game as far as working and learning psychology and this and that. I always worked snug with Ian. He worked very snug with Ian, worked snug with everybody, but we worked very snug together and we figured that's all we needed. We didn't need much more than that. And I always knew that Ian could be a very good mat wrestler when he wanted to be. Very good chain wrestler when he wanted to be. And we literally did at least two of those matches where we said, when we go out here and have these matches, we're not going to hit the ropes one single time. That was our rule. Nobody hits the ropes one single time. We are going to fucking work. And we got down on the mat and we worked. And I absolutely remember getting standing ovations from a couple of those matches.
Oh, the crowd loved it. And like you said, it was a side of Ian that they didn't really ever get to see, because the crowds came to see him bleed and hit people with weapons and fall in glass. And so it was, the there was the story on him was, oh, he's just a garbage wrestler. Can't do, Cornette would bring it up all the time. Oh, he can't wrestle, so he's just got to use weapons or whatever. And you guys definitely proved that that was not the case. And yeah, the crowds just absolutely loved those matches.
And a big part of those matches, a huge part of those matches, like I said, we made the rule before we walked out there, nobody hits the ropes, nobody touches the ropes for anything. You don't run the ropes, you don't touch them. The other big part of that was selling. If you're not running the ropes, you're not touching the ropes, you got to be doing something, so you're selling. And when you're selling, you're telling a story. And, that was real. Very, very proud of those matches for that very reason, man, because I feel like we really, really, truly told a great story in our matches there, man, by staying on the mat, not getting up, and just being able to pull that off and get a standing ovation, I think, is an achievement within itself, especially in front of a crowd like IWA Mid-South was.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm glad you brought that up, man. Yeah, I'm real proud of those matches. Very proud of those matches, man. Psychology is all about the psychology, even when Frank and I were doing the lucha libre style, we had Les Thatcher telling us how to do it, but keep it and make it make sense and do it to where people can follow it. You know, Rip Rogers telling us, man, that Frankensteiner you guys did, that was awesome. Oh, thanks, Rip. Yeah, man, and then you hit him with that big flying drop kick off the ropes. That was killer. Oh, thanks, Rip. We appreciate it, man. Yeah, and then you gave him that big power bomb, man. God, man, that was the most awesome thing I've ever seen. Wow, thanks, Rip, man. That's cool, dude. Yeah, and then you picked him up. Why? And we go, Well, now that you mentioned it, yeah, why am I picking him up? You knocked him down. Go for the fucking pin. Why are you picking him up? Go for the pin. Do you want to win the match? Go for the pin. And if you want to win the match, hook his leg when you go for the fucking pin. So things like that, man, that helped us, keep it real and keep it to where people could follow it and, make it entertaining and it didn't look like we still kept the emotion and told the story in it, man. So it just wasn't a spot monkey fest.
Right, right. After the match that you had with Ian at the 10th anniversary show, you just did a couple of matches in 2007, and that, you know, pretty much was the last time that I had seen you. I did see that um, Manawa wanted me to ask about, you came back and did one last little run with IWA Mid South. You were Tarek the Legend at that point. When did you go from just being great to becoming a legend? What went into that? And then any memories that you have? It looked like the last match you did was in IWA Mid South in 2014 against Isaiah. Do you have any memories of
Woo,
that? Because I wasn't
woo,
there.
woo, woo. So it was a van ride with Chad Collier. We had a little chocolate cake, and I told Chad Collier, I said, you know what? Is Tarek the Great even good enough? And Chad said, nah, you should call yourself Tarek the Legend to be a real dick. And I was like, you know what? You're right, man. And that's literally how that happened. Literally.
Wow. Okay.
Literally how that happened. But I mean, it worked out because, you're not a legend. You're not a legend. I'm a legend. So, I just played off of it or whatever. The match with Isaiah was on a benefit show for Christopher Hatler, right?
That I don't know.
I
I
believe
don't know
so.
that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I couldn't have went out better if I would have tried. Um, of course, if I could have wrestled Frank and we could have went out there like the old days and, did our thing and blah, 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 that would have been the ideal way to, go out. But, time took that away from us. So, I was lucky enough to work with Isaiah, and Isaiah was one of my favorite opponents in IWA Mid-South of all time ever to work for. He's one of the coolest dudes in IWA Mid-South ever. Um, Isaiah is a grown-ass man and he is a fighter. And we traded punches like no one else that I've ever traded punches with in a pro wrestling ring. And that's a bold statement because I've been in the ring with a lot of guys. I mean, I would seriously lay it into Isaiah and he would not hesitate to lay it right back in with everything I gave him, but just a little more on top of it. And that's not tall tales. That's not anything. Like Isaiah is a bad motherfucker, dude. And that match, I feel, was one of the best matches like I probably had in my career. And I feel like I couldn't have went out of IWE Mid-South on a higher note if I would have even tried. Like that match was perfect to me. Like I remember watching it back and thinking that match was pretty much absolutely perfect for me. So yeah, that's my memories of that. My last IWA Mid-South match, man. It was great.
And was that your last match period or
I do believe so. Yeah. Yeah. My memory is a little foggy, but yeah, I do believe that was my last
and
match competing.
did you know going into it that it was going to be your last one?
Yes.
You
Yes.
did. Okay. Was it
Yes.
just a health reasons or you just had enough at that point?
Well,
Combination thereof.
I kind of look at it like this, man. Um, you know, if you went surfing and swimming with sharks all the time, eventually you got to say, you know what? I haven't been bit yet, but I could get bit.
Right.
So if I stop now, I won't get bit. So that's kind of what I did. And Les Thatcher, he retired early because he said he wanted to quit, before he got to the point to where, it got bad and everything. And, I wrestled such a high risk style for so long and
Right.
took so many high risk bumps. I wanted to get out while I was ahead.
Okay.
You know what I
And
mean? And
I mean, and it's fitting that, it was Isaiah. You said, that the only way it would have been better is if it was Kickboxer. Well, Father Time didn't allow that to happen, but you did get, you know, his trainee that
oh God,
that he
yeah,
brought in,
yeah,
so there still had that
absolutely
tie
for
in there.
sure. Yeah, absolutely for sure. And yeah, wrestling, it's a crazy life. I had some of the most wonderful times I've ever had in my life with wrestling. And I literally had some of the absolute darkest times I've ever had in my entire life with professional wrestling. And, a lot of that also contributed to me stepping away from the ring. It was time for me to go. I did my thing, did the good, did the bad, did the all of it. And, I learned from my mistakes. When I make mistakes, I learn from them and everything. So, I knew it was time for me to step away, and that's what I did. And I'm glad I stepped away when I did. And, I'm fortunate that I stepped away when I did. And, you couldn't pay me to get in the ring and take a bump, man. Couldn't
well,
pay me any amount of money, wouldn't get me
well,
in there.
in IWA Mid South, there's a lot of times that you wouldn't get paid to get in the ring and take a bump. So, uh,
Yep.
it is what it is. But you had a fantastic career.
Thank you.
Um, there's no argument from me. You were a legend. And so Tarek the Legend was a very fitting name, if you ask me. But it is perfect for a heel to do that and
Yeah, that's
give
what
you.
like I said, I was having chocolate cake with Chad, and he was like, "Man, you should call yourself the legend just to be a dick." I'm like, what? You're right. Why not? Why not? If you're gonna do it, go full bore, man. Wear the whole damn dress.
Yeah, and you know, I told you that Brett Blades had a story that he wanted me to tell
All
for
right.
him on this. Um,
What's up, Brent?
he had a he had an interaction with you on the 2001 Sweet Science where you were going to give him a bump where you were going to clothesline him over the top rope. And he just wanted to thank you for taking the time in the back before doing it in the ring to just check and make sure that he knew what he was doing, how to make it look right, how to protect himself, how to save himself. Because we had talked on the podcast when he was on one of the very first episodes. And, you know, me, him, a lot of the guy, like the guy that I started with going to the shows with, Ben Rich, we were all thrown out there and put in the ring to do things. No training, no telling us how to do it. I almost got paralyzed taking a power bomb from Bull Payne in at April Blood Showers '98. He's Ian's like, okay, Bull's gonna power bomb you, and he's gonna hit you with a splash, and he's gonna hit you with a chair, and you're gonna suspend him. Never took the time to say, hey, this is how you take a power bomb. And Bull assumed that I knew what I was doing. And as I had already said about the suplexes, I didn't know shit. So I didn't know to sit up on the power bomb. And so Bull's like struggling and drops me just right on my head and neck because he couldn't get my big ass up and he's like struggling with me and I couldn't feel anything. I was like numb
Wow.
and I was like, holy shit, I'm paralyzed. Um,
Wow.
Eventually, that wasn't the case and I was okay. But there was a lot of times where, and then like Bull gigs me so I can get my color and he tells me, squeeze, motherfucker. And I didn't know what that meant. So I take my hands and I'm squeezing trying to squeeze blood out. He's like, what the fuck are you doing, you dumb fuck? That's not what I meant. And I'm like, well, I didn't know. And, so like Brent is just, okay, Brent, you need to take this. And he said he was worried. He was like, I don't, he didn't want to make it look bad. He didn't want to fuck it up and he didn't want to get hurt. And you were one of the few that actually took the time to sit down with him and say, check and make sure that he knew what he was doing. before you went out there and did the spot. And he just had great appreciation for that and the thoroughness of your professionalism to make sure that, he was comfortable with it and not just go out there and assume, oh, well, the ref's going to know what he's doing. Um, so he had that memory of you and just wanted to pass along his appreciations for that.
Yeah, man, of course, dude. I mean, you're only as good as your opponent. You're only as good as the person you're working with. I knew that you guys got thrown into that crazy shit without doing anything. That's why I'm like, have you ever taken this bump, dude? Like, do you know how to take this bump? Okay, well, here's how we're gonna do it. And yada yada yada. And yeah, of course, man, for sure. You're welcome, Brent. Of course, man. I mean, I did that with everyone all the time. And it's funny. I heard a story. Jade Cargill, she said once that she was supposed to go out and throw a chair shot, and she was holding a chair and she was sent it out on TV to do a chair shot and had never done it and had no idea how to do it. And she said right before she walked out the curtain, Punk'd walk over and was like, "Have you ever swung a chair?" And she's like, "Nope." And he was like, "Well, let me show you how to do it." She was like, "So thank you for showing me how to do that, Punk. I appreciate it." And that old school IWA Mid-South mentality right there, dude.
Right,
Do you know what
right.
you're doing? You gonna be okay? You know?
And then we're gonna finish this up with another. We're gonna keep name dropping Brent Blades here until I trip over it. But he came up with this thought of, what I should do, try to do at the end of shows is just to do a little rapid fire thoughts on people that we didn't get to really mention or get to in the podcast, but some quips that I want to hear. What are your thoughts on Tyrant? Because he was one that I always liked, and he just didn't seem to be around like very long, and didn't have a long run in IWA. But he had some great matches with you and Kickboxer and Suicide Kid. Just what can you tell us about Tyron? Do you know what he's up to now? Is he doing okay?
Yeah, I haven't talked to Tom Bass in a long, long time since I can remember, probably since the IWA Mid-South days, to be completely honest with you. I worked with him in a couple other promotions. That's how he got into IWA Mid-South. Kickboxer and I brought him down. And dude was a phenom. Like he was highly, strangely, oddly talented. And he got over really well with the IWA Mid-South crowd and everything. I just don't think he was dedicated to the wrestling business like, a lot of the other guys were because he didn't stay around in it very long. But yeah, what a freakish talent, man. What a freakish talent. Like he was crazy, dude. And he really got over it with IWA Mid-South. And I remember having good matches with him, dude. Because we worked together up here in Cincinnati and everything, and then, took him down there. We gelled, and he was really, really super good in like 3 and 4 way matches. That was his strong point, man. Like he was good, dude.
Yeah, he was
Good.
real good. Another Cincinnati flavor, the old school posse guys. Chip Fairway, GQ Masters, Shark Boy. Any thoughts on them?
Yes, man. I'm sorry. I'm talking to my son real quick. I'm really, really sorry. I'll tell you what. I used to travel to IWA Mid-South with Chip and Brady, who was GQ Masters the third, and Shark Boy, because we all trained together in Heartland Wrestling with Les Thatcher. Chip Fairway was one of the toughest son of a bitches I ever knew in my life. Period, plain and simple. And he was a very, very solid dude. Like that dude had my back for real. Like he would have fought people over me. And dude, I remember I was there, right there, when he went nose to nose with Bull Payne in Fairfield, Ohio. And they went full nose to nose. I mean, Chip stood toe to toe with Bull the entire way. Like that was one of the craziest hoss fights I've ever seen in my life. And that happened in a dressing room right in front of Les Thatcher, right in
Wow.
front of him. Oh yeah, dude. It was the craziest fight ever. Like it looked like a lower key Takayama and Don Fry. Like just the fists back and forth. Bam, bam, bam. It was nuts.
Damn.
So Chip, yeah, Chip was a bad motherfucker, dude. He was badass in IWA Mid-South, you know, badass dude. Brady GQ Masters, multi-talented guy, man. Very, very good at what he did when he did the manager thing. But dude, he could wrestle his ass off, man. If you go back and watch some of his matches, he was trained by Les Thatcher. He took to training very well, and he was a very skilled worker. So multi-talented guy there. Really liked GQ and Brady, man, very much so. And Shark Boy, yeah, came up with Shark Boy and wrestled Shark so many freaking times. Dean was completely awesome. We always had great matches. We never had a bad match. We worked snug too. And a funny story is Tower of Doom was running Real Deal Wrestling up here in Ohio and doing pretty good with that during the IWA Mid-South days. And he did a fans bring the weapons match, like, an IWA Mid-South type gimmick. And we're in this bar wrestling and drunks, people going crazy and, all these weapons. And I'll never forget it, man. I took a computer keyboard and hit Shark Boy over the head and the keys went flying everywhere. And he cussed me out. He's like, "You motherfucker, that hurt so bad." And it was a battle royal. Fans bring the weapons. The next thing I know, I look over and Shark Boy has a full-size boat oar. Full-size boat oar. And I think to myself, where the fuck did he get that from? And right about that time, he swung it with everything he had and hit me across the back of the legs,
Ooh.
across the back of the thighs. That was one of the most
Oh.
pain, that was one of the most painful shots I've ever taken in pro wrestling. So yeah, there's my story about those three guys.
Okay.
Rest in peace,
Uh,
Chip. We love you, buddy. We love you, Chip. We miss you, Brett. We miss you, dude.
yeah, him and Suicide Kid had
Oh my
like
God.
they were. It was like you and Kickboxer, then Chip and Suicide Kid. Neither one of you four missed out on the Smart Mark boom,
Yep.
and then it was Hero and Punk after that.
Oh
So
yes.
what about Suicide Kid?
Oh, I love Jake to death, man. I still talk to Jake this day, man. And one of my favorite opponents in IWA Mid-South for sure. Um, he never did hit me hard enough. He never did kick me hard enough. He never did clothesline me hard enough. He never did get mad at me enough. He never did get mean at me enough. You remember me telling you that shit, Jake, all the time? Yeah. I always told you to hit me harder, dude, but he just wouldn't. But one of the most talented guys in IWA Mid-South, and I definitely remember him being one of the most popular guys in IWA Mid-South for sure. Like he was
Yeah,
very, very, very over. And if I'm not mistaken, he ended up holding the heavyweight title for a little while.
he did. Yeah.
And it was believable because he really got over and the people were really truly behind him and they like actually loved him. So yeah, nothing but good words about Jake, man. I love him to death, dude, and really enjoyed working with him. We did some crazy, crazy, crazy shit together, man. And yeah, love Jake, dude.
Okay. Two more. Wild Child.
Greg Haynes was a guy that I went to school with and knew him and he ended up training and wrestling with us. And yeah, I'm not sure if he was completely cut out for the wrestling business. He went in there and gave it hell. I remember him having to survive some bull pain matches and shit. You know what I mean? We ended up falling out later on. Um, really different political views over 9/11, things type like that. And we just ended up falling out. And I haven't spoken to him in a really long time.
Okay. Okay. Last one. Hard Rockin' Danny D. The only memories that I have of him is pretty much like the entire dressing room would always come out and grab him and see how far they could throw him from the ring to like the last row of the bleachers and beat his ass. And so I just remember that part of them. But then when I was going through the results and stuff, it looked like you guys actually had a few matches and he had actually like won the light heavyweight title from you at one point. So what are your memories of Hard Rock and Danny D? And me and my buddies from college need to know to this day, did the dressing room really hate him and that's why they would come out and throw him like that? Or was that just like his gimmick and he loved to be thrown 80 feet through the air by 20 people.
No, that shit was a shoot, dude.
Okay.
That was a shoot. And I have nothing against Danny D whatsoever, just to make it clear, nothing at all whatsoever. Uh, for a while there, John made me his policeman, and policeman is an old wrestling term, and that's like basically you have a guy in the territory that, beats the shit out of the new guys that come in to see if they want to stay. And he had me doing that for a while, and he made me do that to Danny D every time we went out there. And I swear to God, every time I wrestled Danny D, every single match, it was just a brutal fight for our lives, dude. Like I was trying to kill him and he was trying to kill me, dude. Like it was kill or be killed, like literally, dude. And yeah, the matches probably weren't that good at all. But yeah, dude, that shit was crazy, man. Like, yeah, no, that was real, dude. Like, they would go out there and snatch his ass up, see how far they could toss him, dude. And he would come back. He would come back for more, dude. He would come back for more, and he never bitched once about me trying to beat the complete shit out of him. Never complained once. Threw back with everything he had, would shake my hand after the match. Good match, dude. Yeah, thanks, dude. Yeah, dude, that's the Danny D story right there, dude, for sure, for sure. Like I was out for blood with that guy, man, and he come right back at me with for
Nice.
blood, dude. Like he didn't back down at all, dude. So yeah, more crazy shit from IWA Mid-South, man. I remember after every match, I'd just be scratching my head, shaking my head, like, God damn it, John, why do you make me do that, bro?
Well, you probably were not the only person to have those thoughts.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I'd come back, they'd be like, oh man, good job, you kicked shit out of him. I'm like,
but we're gonna finish this up by letting you talk about clock towers and what you're up to now, because you're putting out some damn good music,
thank you.
and I'm not just saying that. And I am not a music guy. I'm very stuck in my ways with my music. Spotify just told me that I'm a 79-year-old man with my Unwrapped because all I listen to is Sinatra, Beatles, Elvis, Simon and Garfunkel, Everly Brothers,
The
that
good
kind
stuff.
that kind of stuff.
The good
And
stuff.
and so when Spotify told me that I was 79 when I'm only 49, I was like, "Fuck you." Me and Spotify have heat. Um, but then I got onto Kickboxer's podcast and they ran an ad for your music, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. And so I've taken it upon myself to, share your stuff and pump it whenever I can on Facebook and Instagram. I think I just put out like 4 different stories hyping last week's episode with Uncle Honky on my Instagram and picked a different clock tower song for each story,
Yeah, I saw that, man. Thank
um,
you so much, dude.
and stuff. So
Appreciate
why
it.
why don't you tell us, like, you told me that this is something you've been doing all your life really with the music, but how long have you been doing clock towers? How can fans follow you? Are you doing live performances? Is it I know
Sure, sure.
you've released a lot of the music videos.
Sure, man. Clock Towers got started a couple years ago. I was in a band with a guy like probably about 8, 9 years ago. We were in a death metal band and then we lost contact for a while. And then a couple years ago, we made contact again and we decided to get together to jam to see what happened. And the first night we sat down, we wrote the song Spirit Junkie. And from there, Clock Towers just took off, and we went to the studio, recorded the records, recorded the videos, did everything we did, and everything just completely happened organically. And it was just me and him that recorded that entire first record by ourselves. So you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Clock Towers, one word. We got full-length music videos. We've released 4 singles so far. We have 2 more singles to release and then a full album release. That's our debut record. And then we were just in Indianapolis over this past weekend, starting work on the second record. So, people really seem to enjoy the music. It's been getting a great response. We're gathering followers as we go. And we just recently, very, very recently assembled a live band lined up. So we're looking to bring clock towers to the stage to people in 2026. But yeah, if you want to follow us on Facebook, share us. Sharing is what helps us the most. It doesn't cost a dime. Share
Right.
us word of mouth. The right person hears our music and it all takes off. We're not on a label. We do it with the people that follow us, people like you, Jim. Thank you so much for sharing our music. Thank you so very much for helping us out. It helps immensely. Thanks. And if you guys want to help us out too, you can be like Jim and listen to Clock Towers and share our music.
All right. And is there anything else you got to promote for if a fans want to reach out to you, your personal social media accounts or anything?
Yeah, man, sure. I mean, I would love to speak to young wrestlers, any young guys out there that are aspiring, looking for advice, anything like that. Hit me up on my Facebook, my personal Facebook page, Tarek Puska. Any old IWA Mid-South fans have any questions, anything like that? Sure, hit me up on my Facebook. I'd love to talk about it. I'd love to discuss it. I don't mind to talk to these younger guys and if they have an open mind, I can give them some criticisms and some advice, whatever. And like I said, if any fans have any old questions, that's cool too. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer them.
All righty. Well, this is going to wrap up another edition of Fannin's Flashbacks. I'd like to thank Tarek for joining me today. Remember to follow his band, Clock Towers, on Facebook and listen and watch their music videos on YouTube, Instagram, wherever you can find them. As Tarek said, it's free to share. Just pump a share out there, get word of mouth. That's the best advertising that we can do. Remember to check my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin for IWA clips and matches and these podcasts. When you get to the YouTube channel, start by clicking that like button and subscribe. We just passed 100 subscribers this past weekend, so I greatly
Right
appreciate
on.
that,
Good job,
everybody.
dude. Good job.
Um,
Yes.
and if you're interested in vintage IWA Mid-South t-shirts, give my godson, James Christopher, a follow on Twitter, Candido24K_. And if you're looking to have some design work done for yourself, shoot James Christopher a DM. He does great work. He's been putting out the vintage original IWA t-shirts, letting fans have a chance to buy those designs again. And you can follow me on Twitter at jfannin73 and on Instagram at IWAfannin73. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Fannin's Flashbacks. So let it be written. So let it be done. Good day.